everyone, Kim Eagles here of Kaos Solutions. Letting go of something that you might, maybe, perhaps someday need. This is an issue for a lot of people when they start decluttering, because they look at all this stuff and they think, oh, I might maybe someday need that, perhaps. So they hold on to everything that they think that they have potential that they need. And of course, when they do let go of something, what do they attract? According to the law of attraction, what you focus on expands. So they focus on the fact that they let go of something, and guess what? 3 weeks later, they need that particular thing because they were so focused on the fact they let it go, they kind of attracted needing it. So it is possible to live without stuff. Believe it or not, you do not have to keep everything. You can have an uncluttered space and have the things that you need surrounding you. I used to have this issue. Believe me, it was a huge issue. I used to be a daycare worker in my previous life, believe it or not. And I kept everything that I thought might maybe perhaps someday be a craft project. I saw potential in anything, and any of you crafters out there know this issue. You can see something and you just see, oh, we could do this with it, or we could do that with it. But it became such a huge issue that I had too much stuff, and I had things that I kept for years and years and years and never actually used or did anything with. And it wasn't until I started taking the time to reduce the stuff that I had and realized that I wasn't using this, that I actually let things go. And stopped keeping everything that I might maybe perhaps someday be able to create something with or might need. So it's a problem that a lot of people have. It's just a matter of changing the mind frame and asking yourself the right questions to be able to move yourself forward and make the decisions of what you actually do need and what you don't. So here's the 5 questions I want you to ask yourself when you're going through this process of things that you might maybe someday need, but you're not actually using them right now. The first question is, what is the worst thing that could happen if you don't have it? I don't know the answer to that. You have to answer that. What is the worst thing that could happen? For me, when it was like all this craft stuff, what's the worst thing? Well, I don't make a certain craft, or I didn't have a certain component, or I got it from, there was no big issue of what's the worst thing that could happen if you let that go? Second question, if you don't let it go and you keep it, will you actually be able to find it? So if you've kept everything that you've ever needed, will you actually be able to find it? Third question, could it be replaced by something else in your house? Maybe you are thinking about letting go of that cool popcorn bowl with the word popcorn on the side because you don't really have company very often, and you don't need a big bowl for popcorn. You just have your small little bowl, or you eat out of the bag. And then one day you actually have company and you make a big bowl of popcorn, but you don't have that special popcorn bowl that says popcorn. Do you have something else that could be replaced? So do you have another big bowl? Could you use your salad bowl? So think about that. Could it be replaced by something else in the house? Fourth thing, could you borrow it from somebody? Is it something that would be so rare that you would very rarely use, but other people would have it? So could you borrow it from somebody? I had a guy at a seminar the other day who said, oh yeah, he had gotten rid of the snakes that go in your sink, like the snakes to unclog the sink. And of course, within a week or two of him getting rid of something that he said he'd never used before, all of a sudden he had a clogged sink and he needed his little snake that he had given away. So at first he was kind of upset with himself that he had given it away, but then he quickly and easily borrowed it from a neighbor, used it and gave it back, and he didn't have to have it in his space. And the fifth thing, so can you borrow it from somebody else easily? The fifth thing is it worth the cost of the space that you're actually storing it indefinitely? So think about how much your house is worth, how much your house, condo, apartment, wherever you're living, per square foot. How much is that worth? What are you paying? What is it worth? And is that particular object worth that much money per square foot to store indefinitely that you might maybe someday need? So is it worth the cost? I know a lot of people kind of struggle with this. We all have this mentality that we need to be prepared for everything. We need to be prepared for everything. What if disaster strikes? I'm not saying get rid of all of your stuff, don't be prepared for anything, but do you need to be prepared for everything? And the trade-off is, if you keep everything that you might maybe someday perhaps need or use, then the trade-off is a cluttered house. So is it worth having a cluttered house to maybe be prepared for something that might never happen or that you could easily trade off? So those are the questions, that you need to ask yourself when you're making this decision as to whether or not this stuff belongs in your space and whether or not you're going to store it indefinitely. So what's the worst that could happen if you get rid of it? Will you be able to find it if you keep it? Could you replace it with something else in the house? Could you borrow it from somebody else? And fifth, is it worth the cost to store it indefinitely? Those are the questions, the hard questions that you have to ask yourself when you start going through the list of things that you might maybe someday perhaps need, and decide whether or not it is actually worth the space, the time, the energy to manage it, upkeep it, and store it indefinitely in your space. Is it worth having? So sign up to our newsletter, kaossolutions.com/newsletter. That's chaos with a K, to stay up to date on things that are going on in the chaos world, any seminars or sessions that we're doing, as well as weekly blogs and videos to help you declutter your space and learn to live in a calm, peaceful environment. That is my wish for you. I wish you all peace and calm. Peace out.